Well, gee, this Sir Gawain and the Green Knight really is a good poem, good page turner. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Still can't see you. We're not really in the same room. Well, you just caught me reading one of my favorite poems, Sir Gawain, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, specifically. Just kind of feel like talking about this poem right now for some unexplainable reason that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I was assigned to do so. So let's take a good look into Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This isn't actually it. This is just this video script. I don't really have a physical copy. So who wrote Sir Gawain and the Green Knight? No one knows. We do know that it was written in the late 14th century, likely around the year 1400. Around that time, England was recovering from the Black Death, a plague that killed about 1/3 to 1/2 of the population. The lords were concerned that they wouldn't have enough peasants to work for them, meaning that they had a reason to increase wages, leading to laws to combat them increasing wages, which led to riots combating the laws combating increasing wages, among other economic issues. Anyway, it was during this time that a manuscript was written, and it contained 4 poems: Pearl, Purity, Patience, and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Yeah, and besides the naming difference, Sir Gawain is the only one that's not religious focused, so I'm not really sure what it's doing there. Anyway, no one is really sure who actually wrote all these poems. We aren't even sure if he wrote all 4 of the poems, although there are enough similar characteristics between the poems to say that he did. This poet, referred to as the Gawain poet or the Pearl poet, likely lived in Britain's northwest Midlands due to the Middle English dialect the poems are written in. Besides that, not too much is known about him. Scholars say he also wrote a poem called Sir Erkenwald. Besides that, not too much is known about him. Scholars say he also wrote a Scholars say he also wrote a poem called Sir Erkenwald from a separate manuscript. It's Saint Erkenwald, isn't it? His writing suggests that he's familiar with British traditions in writing, and some even say he was a chaplain at the court of a nobleman in western or northwestern England. However, any attempt to fully confirm his identity has failed in the past. In fact, he could even be one of us, kept alive through constant technological advancements in medical sciences and magic also. Magic is probably involved somewhere in there. Anyway, before we look into the plot of this thing, we have to ask, what's the structure like? Well, that was supposed to be a transition. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight belongs to the alliterative revival happening in northern England. I mean, it's not that much of a revival. Alliteration in English works didn't really die. But still, the structure consists of several long lines, each containing 2 half lines. The halves are joined together by a sentence containing alliteration, and each long line is concluded with a bob and wheel, or 5 lines with an A-B-A-B-A rhyming structure. Although in this case the first of these lines directly continues from the previous line. Like I said before, the poem was originally written in Middle English, so instead of looking like this, it more looked like this. However, I read a version that was translated into what I believe is early modern English, and a bit of the structure and alliteration was sort of lost in translation. However, most of the rhyming sections were very easy to notice, and I did spot several sentences with strings of similar sounds spread throughout. Alright, that's great and all, but now that that's done with, let's get into the summary. I now present to you my 100% accurate and comprehensive summary of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight that will definitely put Cliff Notes and Spark Notes to shame, both at once. Go. So the story takes place at a great feast for New Year's and Christmas. A knight clothed in green on a green horse arrives to the feast, with a holly branch in one hand, an axe in another, and many plates of armor missing. He meets up with King Arthur and challenges him and his knights to a game. One of the knights will strike him with his axe, and in a year and 1 day, they'll meet again and he'll strike back. The knights are hesitant, but after being mocked, Arthur steps up to the challenge. I mean, I can do it. So Gawain takes the axe, and with one swing, chops the knight's head off. And then the knight just scoops it back up and tells him to meet him at the Green Chapel in a year and a day. Well, everyone just laughs it off, but Gawain thinks, well, should I have to actually meet back up with this guy? Well, a year has almost passed, and Gawain sets out for the Green Chapel. He comes across the castle and makes a deal with the lord of the castle. The lord would go out hunting and give Gawain what he finds, and Gawain would exchange that for whatever he finds staying back at the castle. On the first day, the lady of the castle kisses Gawain, attempting to seduce him. So when the lord comes back, he relays the kiss back over to him. What? And the same thing happens for 2 more days. But on the 3rd day, she also gives him a green sash, which he doesn't give to the lord. As New Year's approaches, Gawain leaves the castle for the Green Chapel. When they reach the place, the guide says, alright, we're here. You know, no one will blame you if you just backed out of this deal. I mean, I won't tell anyone. And Gawain replies, you know what, yeah, I appreciate the offer, but no, God will get me out of this one if he wants it, and besides, you know, I don't want to come across as a coward, you know. So Gawain then comes to a crevice in a rock, wondering where the Green Chapel is, and it turns out the crevice is the Green Chapel. He meets up with the Green Knight to be stricken by him, as promised, and Gawain presents his neck, but flinches when the Green Knight strikes. I thought you were better than this. Alright, I won't do it again. So he stays still, but the Green Knight feigns his next blow. Then he swings a 3rd time, drawing a bit of blood from Gawain's neck. And Gawain is like, alright, you struck me, just like we agreed, now can you stop? Then the Green Knight explains that he was actually the lord from the castle. The deal they made in the castle was actually a test of honesty. Gawain had truthfully given what the lady had given him the first 2 days, but he didn't give the sash on the 3rd day. That's why the knight feigned the first 2 blows and drew blood on the 3rd. So Gawain apologizes and offers to return the sash. But the Green Knight lets him keep it, and Gawain uses it to remind himself of its imperfections. Then the Green Knight reveals that his name is Bertilac, and the lady at the castle is Morgan Le Fay, King Arthur's half-sister, Gawain's aunt, and general enemy to Arthur's knights. The poem ends with Gawain heading back to Arthur's court, where the people decide to wear green sashes to honor him and his journey. Though I don't really know why. I mean, Gawain says that the sash symbolizes his imperfections, so wouldn't that come across as them saying that he's imperfect? Well, that's good and all, but we've gone a whole 8 minutes without talking about themes. So let's correct this great error and talk about themes. Now this story has several themes, and one of them is ideals. Gawain is trained to be chivalrous, sticking to a strict knightly code. However, he's also a very courteous person, meaning that he is required to have exceptional manners. However, these 2 ideals are challenged when Morgan attempts to seduce Gawain. He knows the right thing to do is to reject her attempts, but he doesn't want to be rude to her. In addition, when he takes the green sash and doesn't show Bertilac, he shows that he is imperfect, despite how perfectly chivalrous and courteous he may seem. Another theme is awe and amazement. One of the sentences introducing the poem says, "Therefore an adventure in our land I intend to show, and that a wondrous sight as some men deem it, and a very strange adventure from Arthur's Tales of Wonder." The people in Camelot are amazed at the Green Knight for being, well, dressed in green, bottom to top. Also got green horse, that's probably cool. And they were especially amazed when he got his whole head chopped off and he just picked it right back up like it was just your average Wednesday or something. And Arthur comments that he wanted to see something wonderful during the feast, and the Green Knight was just that. However, the awe didn't come without a bit of discomfort, especially experienced by Gawain, who may get killed by the knight in about a year. Anyway, the story has held up today because of these themes. Several elements of the story are relatable to us as people. It speaks to people who have made decisions against their virtues, or to people who experience both joy and discomfort when they're amazed. In fact, this story has the ability to cause people to experience amazement and possibly question their virtues. So, what's my opinion on the story? Well, I'd say it's an alright read. It's definitely not an easy read. At least the version I read wasn't. It probably depends on the translation and how good of a reader you are. One thing that I noticed is that it's very detail-oriented. The action doesn't kick in for a while, and when it does, it still takes its time every once in a while to focus on specific details. Now, I generally tend to focus more on the action in what I read, so it didn't really work for me. But if you're the kind of reader who appreciates when stories go in depth like this, then I think you might enjoy this one. Anyway, the actual story is very solid, with several surprises along the way to keep it interesting. Although I do wonder why Gawain got mad at the Green Knight for drawing a bit of blood when he just straight up chopped the Knight's head off. But other than stuff like that, the story holds up. And as I described in the analysis part of the video, the story has a lot more depth than I realized. So yeah, I'd say this is worth the read, especially if some of the themes mentioned seem relatable to you. In conclusion, my favorite part is that Gawain's horse is named Gringlet. It's really funny. And yeah,